and it addresses this scourge, this violence against women and children, which tears at families, which tears at our way, at the fabric of our society, which tears at our conscience. And it is good to see that there is strong progress being made. Every presentation you've seen this morning shows the way in which we are working together. And the Australian Government, the Commonwealth Government, of course, is making a vital contribution working together with the other jurisdictions. So I'm pleased to launch today with my state and territory colleagues our third action plan for our national strategy to reduce violence against women and their children. It sets an ambitious agenda for the next 3 years to reduce and address the impact of violence, building on the last 6 years of work that we've already undertaken. Now, we will be backing the third action plan with a $100 million commitment, which includes $20 million for the prevention and early intervention programs to break the cycle of domestic and family violence, $25 million for services for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians experiencing family violence, $15 million to improve and expand national domestic and family violence services, and $30 million for frontline legal services to support women experiencing this violence. And that, of course, is in addition to the $100 million women's safety package I announced a year ago, which, as Senator Cash observed earlier, was the first policy announcement I made as Prime Minister. And of course, in addition to that, we have the $30 million advertising campaign, which you saw such compelling advertisements, again, that there's so much government advertising and communication. It's a great credit to the Minister and, of course, to all of the jurisdictions who work together to produce such an effective campaign that is achieving that cultural change. Now, there is so much more work to be done, and we're looking forward to listening, to taking advantage of the expertise and the experience of this summit, full of passionate, committed, resilient women and men who all, like us, are determined to see an end to this violence and to see all women respected, living free from this scourge, this shame of violence against women and their children.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and on behalf of the people of Queensland, can I welcome everyone to our state for the very first summit of this kind targeting the prevention of family and domestic violence. As the Prime Minister said, this is an incredibly important issue. It's one that has touched my life, and I'm quite sure that it's touched a lot of people's lives because it is so real and so raw out in our communities. As a nation, we are doing more and more to address this issue, and I think through the educational campaigns that have been raised at a national level, we are raising that awareness. And what that means is more women are now reporting domestic and family violence. Our courts are responding and our governments are responding. And what has been unique about today is that we've actually been able to showcase some of the key initiatives that are happening in other states, in different jurisdictions, and hopefully we can learn from one another and adopt the best practice across our nation. So I welcome the Premiers, the Ministers, and of course the Prime Minister here to Queensland. As the Prime Minister said, this is fundamentally about respectful relationships as well. And respect needs to start at our homes and in our schools. But as leaders in our community, we need to work with the organisations that are delivering fundamental services out to our communities right across our nation. I believe that this is a fantastic first step. We have over 190 people here today, and I thank each and every one of them for coming to Queensland to share your unique experiences with us. We thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you everyone for coming today. Together I believe that we can make real change and bring about real difference to people's lives.
Well, do we have some questions? there are any questions.
Could I ask you a question on another matter?
Do you mind if we focus on the very important issues that we're addressing today? Because I'm sure everyone... Yes, please.
Prime Minister, you met with Henry Johnson from Braveheart.
I did. Yes.
He wants a royal commission into family court and how it's assessed with the violence against children and women. Do you support a royal commission?
Hetty raised that matter with me. There are a number of... There's a body of work being undertaken at the moment that the government is reviewing in terms of the operations of the family court. I don't believe there is I believe we have enough material and work in hand to address the issues that have been raised. The important thing is, for us as a government, indeed for all of us as governments, is to act where we see the clear issues and problems, to seek to address them. And there is already, as I said, a body of work that the attorney and the government is addressing right now. Please.
You've spoken about the importance of doing things with not to Indigenous people. How has the Indigenous community helped shape this plan?
Well, there have been a series of meetings right across Australia between officials of my department. As you know, we have Indigenous Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Nigel Scullion, has obviously been engaged in those, as have other ministers, as have officials. I have met with Aboriginal leaders and indeed experts in this area myself. It is I had discussions on this very issue, this very issue, very recently here in Queensland. So I can assure you, it is something we are definitely working with our First Australians on this. It's an issue of the keenest focus, and I want to acknowledge all of the contributions that were made, particularly, if I may say, by Lisa Harvey and indeed by Dale from the Northern Territory, addressing these issues, particularly today.
Prime Minister, are there any cross-border legal discrepancies that need to be addressed, for example, in areas of restraining orders or anything along that?
Well, those issues are being addressed. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues would like to comment on those, but this is a mutual recognition is very important, and the greater harmony, the higher the degree of harmonisation we can have, the better. Again, as Dale was saying earlier, a woman should not be in a position where she has a different level of support or protection simply by crossing over a state or territory border. Would anyone else like to comment on that? I'm monopolising. Well, the questions are being asked me, but I don't want to monopolise all the answers. Would anyone else like to comment on that? No?
On a similar line, how close are we to national uniform laws to combat revenge porn?
Well, again, this is something that we are addressing as well. There are several jurisdictions that have laws on revenge porn. There is, of course, federal legislation in place which deals with harassing and menacing conduct online, but we certainly would welcome a uniform approach across the country. We should have zero tolerance for this type of behaviour. Do you want to address that?
Well, on a similar matter, in terms of trying to coordinate our response, it's not just the laws that we write, it's the way our current systems operate. So we've got a number of pretty well separate child protection systems, and we know that family violence drives so much of that important work, so we need to better link those together. We need to link all of our federal courts, so the federal court, the family court, together with all of the courts across states and territories. A proper connectivity, sharing information, sharing records, having line of sight, so when a decision is made, you've got all the facts you need to make sure that the safety of the woman in question and her children is the primary focus, and that you're not making, because you just don't have the information, decisions that could put someone in harm's way. More effective, more efficient, changing lives, saving lives, you've got to have the information being shared. So yes, we need common laws, but we also need common practice, and we need common leadership, and that's why I spoke today, and I think there's a fair degree of support for us to continue the discussion around standardised leave and the national employment standards, our courts working better together, child protection working better together, but also using one of the great platforms in the world in terms of the universal provision of healthcare, Medicare, to better provide for those who are dealing with family violence. All of these issues, they come directly from the question you've asked.
Prime Minister, just on the support for Indigenous communities, there's a delegation here today from the Northern Territory really wanting more funding to address the chronic rates of family violence up there. Will you give bipartisan support for the No More campaign being led by Charlie Connell?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. I could not stress more how important this issue is. This no more is the message. There must be no more of this family violence. That's why we are all working in a concerted way to address it. We recognise it is a very complex challenge. Just in the space of the last few questions, you can see the range of challenges we face, from the very raw and personal issues in the criminal justice system to the family court to misuse and abuse of technology. So certainly I believe there is a complete unity ticket across politics and across jurisdictions on this. And I think this issue is beyond politics, frankly. It's beyond partisan politics. It is something we are all committed to addressing. The challenge is, of course, finding the policies and the methods that are most effective, and that's why it's been so useful. What a great thing it is. What a great thing it is that here we are, leaders of governments, with so many other issues and distractions and challenges and priorities. Here we are assembled in this place today, focused on this one issue, and all recognise that each and every jurisdiction and each and every one of the 190 people gathered here today has a contribution and an insight that is valued and respected, because we will all learn from each other's experience. And look at the way in which the pioneering work, the joined up information sharing work in South Australia has been taken up by Tasmania, as Will Hodgman described. The Victorian Premier said to me when Jay Weatherill was presenting, you leant across, I hope you don't mind me saying this, you leant across and you said, this is the best initiative, it's outstanding. So you can see that all rivalry aside, whether it's, territories or state of origin, Premier, Baird, whatever it is, we are absolutely on a unity ticket in addressing this challenge, and it's great that we're sharing our experiences in such a constructive way.
I also think it's important on that point from the Prime Minister that we also have to be honest as well. And part of the plan that we've committed to, there's an acknowledgement, particularly specifically to the question in terms of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, that there is so much more work to do. And part of the impetus today is to acknowledge where things have worked well, but also where we still have a lot to do. And the other part is responding to children who are living with domestic violence. There's so much more we have to do. That's so many long-term connections, even to the point of youth suicide and others. We have to do more. And why it's incredibly important that we're all here today, and I've already paid tribute to Premier Palaszczuk, we also have to acknowledge that this is a journey. And this is not just, let's come here and do this. There is so much more to do. And certainly every single person on this table and every single person in that room knows it. And we need to acknowledge where it's not going well and where we have to work together to make sure it does.
In terms of, you're talking, Victorian President was talking about the need for information sharing and perhaps a national database. When will that be set up so that agencies are communicating with each other and children and vulnerable are not falling between the cracks?
Well, I can't give you a precise timeline there, but that is the goal is to have as seamless a cooperation between departments within governments, and several, as I said earlier, the South Australian Premier described how that is operating, and of course between jurisdictions. But the goal is to work together, and you see this graphically today. We are all here together in a common cause. We disagree on many things. Perhaps we're perceived to disagree on more things than we actually disagree on. There's actually quite a unity of purpose in COAG, I think. But on this issue, it is an absolute unity ticket, and the critical agenda is to make sure we deploy the policies and the techniques that work, and that's why it's important to share experience, because in this area, which has been, we have not paid the attention to this issue that we should have in years past. That's the truth. That's why we have the National Action Plan. That's why we're addressing it now. So we are addressing it now. It is in the clearest of focus, and we have that common purpose. Would you like to add to that?
No, that's
All right, good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much.
Sorry, Prime Minister, can I just get you on the parenting benefit as well, just quickly?
Yeah, we'll may deal with that separately. Yeah.
Okay, so that was live from Brisbane. The Prime Minister with state and territory leaders at the summit addressing domestic violence. The government's committing a further $100 million to early intervention programs, legal help, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander issues, and to domestic national services that address domestic violence.